from Be Rooted Counselling. Sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late. I've had a few problems with with technology this evening, just the usual. So I'm here to chat really about grief and loss and kind of a little bit about my history, and where I'm from, why I'm kind of doing this, a little bit about my membership, maybe if I've got time. But basically, I wanted to do this live really, just to kind of introduce myself a little bit. Just gonna get a drink of water. How are you all doing this evening? I'm just maybe waiting a minute in case there's anyone who wants to join. Um, I'm a little bit late this evening, so my apologies. Um, but I'm going to give you a minute to see if anyone else is joining. 'Cause sometimes people are running a bit late, like I was. Well, mine was technology, it wasn't because I was running late. Um, I'm going to kind of give a bit of an overview. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. So kind of the reason what this evening is about. It's not really about my membership. It's more a bit of a little chat, workshop, kind of listening about why I'm doing this, where I've come from. So basically, I run a private therapy at the minute. Go back to when I was 16, which is many, many moons ago, in a different place in the UK. I experienced my own grief, my own loss of my firstborn son. I was 16, got pregnant at 16. He was 17 when I was born. Um, Absolutely gorgeous. Seemed healthy. Kind of healthy labour, all of that kind of stuff. But even back then, I would say there's a parent's instinct, a mother's instinct, as I say. Just things didn't seem right. His skin was a little bit rashy, a little bit kind of corned beefy looking. And from there, I kind of went straight to the GP. GP said he's absolutely fine, and then there were blisters on certain areas of their body. And from there, they were just not settling, just not settling. Changed nappy, giving cuddles, everything, and even then, just not settled. So I went back to the doctors, did bloods. They said everything was absolutely fine. And then the weekend, family looked after my son, who was called Jake, by the way, and they basically said to me when we went back, his lymph nodes were inflamed because it just wasn't great that weekend. So we went back. They did more tests. He couldn't go to the toilet. He couldn't wee. So they basically had to insert a needle in through the stomach into his bladder, to get the urine out. They did more blood tests. He wasn't okay. It just wasn't okay at all. And then that evening, basically the consultant came down and told me, Handy's dad, that he was 11 week old, bearing in mind that he had leukemia. I, I was 17, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know much about it. For me, it just felt like, gosh, what is this? This is scary. He's going to die. This just feels unbearable. Um, and within a week, he had declined. He needed bloods, transfusions. They basically kind of enforced him into a coma. And he never woke up. He never woke up. Things were that bad. They had to do. It had gone into his brain. It wasn't great, and from there he declined, and they basically said we're going to have to turn the ventilator off. Obviously, they needed our consent. I didn't really know. I kind of, because I was so young, I had no one really around me, none of my own family, just my partner and his family. And I just felt lost. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I was so numb. And basically that evening, I think it was about 12 in August. And yeah, and they basically turned his life support off. They took pictures, fingerprints of his hands and his toes, feet, hair, cuttings of his hair. And that was the worst day of my life. And that was many moons ago, over 20, 26 years ago, nearly 26, yeah, 26 years ago. And that kind of cemented all those years ago to where I am now. I think if that had have never happened, I would not be doing this now. I would not have gone down the path where I'm going now. I always wanted to be an actress. Like, children have these dreams, don't they? If they want to do something, they want to be able to do that. My dream wasn't to be a mum at 16, 17. My dream was to go to America to be an actress. And that never happened. I then went down a different path. I kind of, yeah, all I can say, it was shocking. It was horrible. And there's no pain like it. So this has kind of led me on to then kind of going through my own stuff, my own therapy. A lot of it I did on my own. Hi, good evening, Ella, Bella. Nice to meet you. Sorry, I kind of will take comments in a little bit. I'm just kind of going through, but thank you for coming and thank you for liking, and the rest of you as well. Hi, good evening. And yeah, from there, I basically, yeah, I'm gonna kind of go through the grief stages and add on to my own kind of stuff because I'm kind of adding on to the usual stages of grief because I think there's so much more that's not being talked about, especially now in this, especially with COVID and everything like that, what's happened, because there's been so much what's happened, hasn't there, since then. So yeah, so that kind of impacted me massively for the rest of my life. I then went and did my training in counselling therapy in 2011 after I'd healed myself. I went straight into an office job, kind of did that, that kind of, but I just felt there was no purpose. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a meaning in life. So I kind of thought, what can I do? I want to go and help people. I want to do something to give people something that I've gone through because I felt so alone. Back in those days, in the 90s, there was nothing like there is now. All of the talking therapies, cruise bereavement care, all of that support wasn't there then. It was minimal. I got invited to a family day with a load of other people who I'd never met to light this candle, and that was it. And yeah, so that's why I went into do therapy counselling, and I now work with, I work with young people that've got poor mental health, adults. I've also worked with Cruise Bereavement Care. I worked with them for 5 years and volunteered before. I work now with a lot of people that are experiencing trauma, um, abuse, that kind of stuff. So it's all kind of assimilated really from there. But the reason why I'm here tonight is I want to be able to talk about the initial impact of that grief. We I don't know if you've heard. Some of you may have heard of Kubler-Ross, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I think it was in 1969. She worked with a lot of patients that were terminally ill, and she'd done years of observing and researching. And she'd gone off and done her own bit of research and came up with this linear, it's quite linear, 5 stages of grief, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, um, which we kind of know now. We research that actually we don't grieve like that. We're human, we're all different, we are complex. Some people will go straight into, well, like me, I went straight into kind of bargaining. I was so vulnerable, that intense what if. I kind of was like, even denial as well in a stage. I remember being on the bus thinking, my son's not died. That's him over there in the pram because he looked quite similar. And then kind of moments of me thought, no, he's not here. And I kind of had those. It can't go on. It can't go on like this. That kind of denial massively. and that bargaining. And before this happened, I was quite religious. I was brought up in a Catholic church, and I used to go to church and believe in God. That kind of changed who that, and this is what I believe, and this is what I'm going to come on to at the end. It changed my identity. That loss, it changed my identity. It might be something that you've experienced as well. Your identity completely changes. So you go from really, where you were before. You're going through this grief, this kind of denial, bargaining, and depression. I don't think that you ever get to an acceptance. I think you may have good days initially. You may have days where your friends come round, and 6 months, a month, a year down the line, you kind of need to get on with it. But it's not like that, is it? It's not like that. You can't just get on with it. Family expect you to be over it within 6 months. And let me tell you, it don't it grief is always there. That loss. For me, then it goes on to thinking about those 7 stages. For me, it was that kind of denial, bargaining, shock, disbelief. What has happened? You know, and that guilt, because I was so young when I got pregnant. I didn't want a baby. I didn't want a child. So I had that guilt of, oh my gosh, what happens if I'd have not had that baby and I'd had an abortion? He wouldn't have suffered. I had all of those stages going in my head. So that whole pain and guilt, and that's where we go into like the 7 stages, where we go through that shock, disbelief. So more research has come out and said that we go through that pain, guilt, bargaining, depression, the upward turn, where you could see yourself. You could see yourself kind of going away from that grief a little bit. You have days out, um, and reconstructing and working through. And then they kind of, I think, more of a hope than acceptance from my view. I don't know if how some of you feel, if you felt, if you've ever experienced a grief or a loss, if you actually ever accept it. I think for me it was more around hope. Um, but I would kind of, thinking about the stages of what I went through, I would definitely say I went through the stages of depression, and I went through more of a complex grief. So complex grief is where it lasts longer than a year. It's all consuming. It's painful. That pain where initially when the person's died, you kind of the adrenaline, you're all up there, whereas actually then it kind of goes down. And there's days where I felt really depressed. But it's not a clinical depression, because clinical depression is where you feel like that all the time. It's a flat. Whereas with grief, you may have a day where you go see family, or but it'll come back. It can come back and it can knock you off your feet, especially on anniversaries. I don't know how you all are with anniversaries. Um, even still now, I still have days, and I'm a therapist, and I'm very self-aware. I'm self-aware, and even 20 odd years on, I still have days at Christmas where I'm like, what would he be doing now? So I wrote this memory book, and it really helped me going through those different stages, what he would be doing each year. That's kind of had to help, kind of give me that hope of future possibilities. Um, but I think the research says, doesn't it? We go through all of those stages, but like I say, it's not linear. But what I wanted to talk about is 2 stages that I've kind of come up with myself through my own observations of people who I've worked with, through my own trauma, through my own complex grief, and through my own unpicking of myself, seeing my patterns of relating. Is identity. I brushed on it earlier about identity, about your identity changes, and for me it did. It fitted right into, I don't know if some of you might have heard of the wounded healer theory. So I needed to be able to go on and find something where I'm doing help, where I'm helping. Um, I didn't want to be an actress anymore. I didn't want to go down that road because it didn't fit anymore. It didn't fit for me. Some of you might have gone through something like that, where after the death of someone, where you've kind of your identity is completely changed. I want that same I'm not that same girl I was at 17 or even 10 years ago. You evolve. I evolved through the grief and the loss to eventually, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this. The way I describe grief is that I know we've spoken about all of the different stages through research and contemporary stuff, but for me, it's a little bit like initially the grief is so consuming. It consumes every thought process, everything. And over years, or even 6 months, then we're all different. And this is the thing, we're all so different. Over years, it kind of, for me, it was about a couple of years, the grief shrunk. It got smaller, but it never goes. It's always there. It's always there in my heart. It's not consuming like that. It's just there. And this was described by Tompkins, who was also another researcher. And I kind of always bring in theories because I think it supports what I'm saying and my experience and people that I've worked with, and maybe you guys, maybe you all as well. I'd love to hear anything or you add after this live, you comment. But going on from those 7 stages, I've kind of come with an extra two, so I think it's 9. Like the identity, and I think lastly is that meaningful and purposeful life, having a good life after. I think for me, having more children, having my children healed me. Doing something where I'm having a purpose, a something where I'm not just doing mundane, having a good life, going to the beach, I can make happy memories. But I'm still allowed those days where I can grieve still and accept that loss and think, yeah, you're not here, you Jake, you're not here. Um, but I can still have those moments where I kind of think fondly. I still have moments where, even someone as a professional, we still have days where it's blooming hard. We do. There's no perfect way of saying, grief. You're going to be fine. But what I can do like going on to where I'm going, and what the reason why I'm talking about this is that part of my membership I'm going to be doing coaching and kind of counselling, kind of interwoven, looking at goals and kind of grief and kind of ways of managing, thinking about self care. I am running a course starting from March for mums to empower them that have experienced grief, the loss of a child, to empower the mothers, to empower you in your healing and to be able to, and I won't use the word accept because I don't think that we accept. I think it's having hope and having that good life still to be able to move on, having a meaningful and purposeful life. So that's what I'm hoping to do, and I'm going to be doing these kind of lives. I'm going to be doing the coaching every month. Depending on your needs, I can offer them weekly if that's what you want. But I'm also doing my own course where it's going to be a written course, but also participation. And I'll put that up. I'll talk about that another time. But today it's more of a snapshot discussion to this evening, just kind of seeing how you guys are and if it's something that you would be interested in. I know quite a lot of my previous posts have been around trauma and narcissism, and that's something else that I am also quite experienced in. But that's not this evening. I'm not going to be talking about that this evening. So I just wondered if there were any questions, if you had any questions or anything. If not, just comment and I can answer back later on or another evening. But I am going to be doing these weekly kind of little what I call them nutshell workshops. So it's me talking about kind of these kind of things, and you coming in and saying, "This is my experience. This is what I've learned." It's more of a community. I want it to be a community thing where you can meet other people, like-minded people who have experienced something similar, and that's what I'm hoping for my membership. But yeah, so in that membership, you will get lots of stuff before it goes live. I will also be doing like Zoom web seminars, um, weekly, monthly, whatever you guys want to do. I'm quite happy to do them weekly, or monthly, whatever you feel is more helpful. Quite flexible with that, to be fair. And yeah, I just kind of want to kind of go from there if there's any questions. And yeah, so kind of that's me finished for this evening. But I really thank you for coming on and listening to me, and just listening to my journey and talking about some of the stages of grief. And that's kind of where we start with. We kind of want to, going through the membership, we're going to kind of hash out where you are, what you need. What do you need? You might not even know. You might not even know what you need. I mean, I don't think I knew what I needed back then. I just needed someone to be there without judging me, without, you know, without any kind of, being congruent, being honest, without any kind of, oh, it'll be all right, it'll be okay. That sympathy. That don't work. I wanted someone to empathise. I wanted someone to say to me, not without saying it's going to be better, you're going to be all right. Because I don't think there's not a magic wand, is there? There's not a magic wand what'll say, I don't want to feel these feelings anymore, because you've got to feel them to grieve. And this is another thing. To be able to grieve fully, you've got to feel those feelings, that sadness, that anger, that rage. And the one of the other worries is that a lot of people will feel it, but because it's so consuming, they will block it. They'll block that through alcohol, drugs, and there's two different paths, isn't there? There's a path of I can't deal with this. I need, I just need a fix to make me feel numb, more numb, and the next day it hits. I've worked with people who have done that for years, and they've never been able to get over it. They can't talk about that person. In fact, I've worked with people who cannot even go to the gravestone, of or where that person is, their body. I've seen that, and it's hard for them to be able to do that. But I have actually, in my work, which I felt so privileged, I've been able to go and do that with people. I've been able to go eventually to be able to walk with them to that grave, because that's what they wanted to do. That were one of their goals. And we'll be looking at goals. We'll be looking at what do you need to be able to kind of function. And that's what they needed. And I'm more than happy doing that online, or like this. And it might feel a bit strange, but once you get to know me, it will feel okay. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of where I am this evening. I just wanted to do a quick live. I'm going to be kind of updating you and doing some more like these little nutshell workshops, I call them. um, and I think I'm just going to leave you with this lastly, is another thing what helped me, and I kind of, it's still with me now actually, is I never had it before, um, and it's called the dark sense of humour. I really, and I think it kind of got me through quite a lot, having a sense of humour, but a dark sense, to be able to kind of, and it was a defence. It was a defence mechanism to be able to kind of function through my work, and I think, that kind of helped me, having that dark sense of humour, and just friends actually not walking across the road and not saying hi. Who does that? Who does that? But do you know why that happens? Because people don't talk about death and dying enough. It's still in 2024, still a taboo subject, and it shouldn't be. And that's why I say, let's chat. Rest in peace, let's chat. That's why I've named it like that, because it's one thing we're all going to experience, isn't it? We're born and we're all going to die. So we need to kind of have those open conversations. It's not taboo. And I guess it all depends on, going back to your values and your identity and where you come from and what you believe in. And that's okay. That's okay. We can do that. We can talk about that. So yeah, so I'm gonna end this now. Done 30, half an hour minutes, 30 minutes. I think these are enough, unless you think actually it's not enough. And I'm more than happy to do. I'm going to be doing, so if any of you actually join my membership, I'm going to be doing these off YouTube and probably on another forum. So on Zoom, if you've got Zoom or Teams, whatever's easiest. Um, and what I can also do is, if you don't have access to that, is I can download Telegram, which is encrypted, so it's better than WhatsApp. You don't be using WhatsApp, not on the, so it's confidential. And I can leave voice notes, and you can voice note me back if that's of interest. If you join, we can have those conversations regardless of the time zone. If you're in, I don't know, Australia, America, South Africa, wherever you are in the world, or the UK, we can have those conversations. So yeah, so I'm going to leave you guys here. I'm just going to have a drink of water. I'm going to leave you guys here, and thank you for watching. Um, so yeah, so thank you for watching. Please like this, subscribe to my channel, share it. But yeah, let's have these open conversations. And I know it's really hard. I get it, because it's still taboo. So I'm going to end it there. And I will keep you updated by my little shorts as well. I'll do some little shorts saying when I'm going to be on, or if you kind of comment, look at my community a little bit, you'll see when I'm going to go live next. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.